Hi, I'm Frank Berchis,
And I'm Bobby Amendola.
and we're the founders of Across the Lines News and Analysis.
Now, what we're striving to do here at Across the Lines News and Analysis is bring objectivity back into the media. As most people know, there isn't a lot of objectivity anymore because most people are either trying to make you lean one way or trying to make you lean another way. And we're going to look at all the facts in the news story and give our honest assessment on it.
Now, we're going to be bringing out a variety of different content. Everything from articles, such as the ones we have on our website posted regularly on acrossthelinesnews.com. We'll also be putting out videos, including compilation videos, commentary videos, and longer pieces like the one we're about to show you that are going to take current events and place them into the frame of the bigger picture to try to make sense of all the stuff going on in the world today.
Stay tuned for our next segment on recent news stories.
Our first segment today is going to be covering some recent news. Now, you may not have known this. On Christmas Eve, we almost all went out with a bang. Now, this sounds like the kind of story that you'd imagine would go unmissable, but that's unfortunately not the case. Due to a fake news story about Israel preparing to have a nuclear attack against Pakistan, also a nuclear power, Pakistani defense minister saw it and responded on Twitter before also preparing to retaliate nuclearly. Now, thankfully, people in power noticed prior to escalating anything that the story was fake. But to me, at least, even getting that close to nuclear war is very scary, especially due to a fake news story. Now, there's a whole lot of problems with fake news, but a nuclear war is not one most people would think of as a possible outcome.
I mean, I've heard a lot of fake news stories recently, but I never thought that it would ever come down to a nuclear war.
No,
could possibly happen from a fake news story.
Well, I guess on to more bright news.
Yeah, brighter news, I guess, than a nuclear war, but
hardly.
So today we recently, unfortunately, had a police casualty in the United States. It happened in Orlando when this man that was wanted for the suspected murder of his ex-girlfriend was being confronted by a police officer in a Walmart parking lot, and the guy decided to shoot the police officer, and her name was Sergeant Deborah Clayton, and I believe the guy's in custody now. His name's Markeith Lloyd, so that's good news at least, but rest in peace to the police officer, obviously. And a couple days ago, a U.S. diplomat was shot by just some random guy in Guadalajara, Mexico. Thankfully, the diplomat is alive and in stable condition, but they haven't released the names, and they haven't released the name of the suspect either, so we'll report that when we know more information about it.
It's extremely sad to see that shootings are turning into a daily occurrence at this point, it almost seems.
Yeah, how many? We've had a lot of terror attacks recently, too.
It's literally almost impossible to keep track of. It's like on a daily basis. There was...
Germany, the truck.
Yes, the Germany truck attack. There was the...
Oh, did you hear about the one in Israel where the guy drove the truck through a bunch of soldiers?
I did not even hear about that.
Killed like 4 people.
That
was just yesterday.
There's that one. There was the shooting at Fort Lauderdale Airport.
Yeah.
Over the last week, or that may have even been weekend. It's at this point hard to keep track, unfortunately. There was the attack in Turkey.
Yeah, but that
Baghdad.
No one really talks about those.
Those probably countless more that went on in the Middle East that just did not get coverage.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. But trust me, we'll be covering those.
Yes. I guess let's move on to something a little bit more positive. At least at the moment, it's a little bit more positive. Now, how Twitter seems to be taking over the news, especially now with our soon-to-be president being the virtual king of Twitter, at least tweeting more than almost anyone, we figured we would be doing a disservice if we didn't at least do a weekly update of his Twitter. So, let's begin.
Since it is the age of Twitter diplomacy, we decided that we had to do
this. And since he's already managed to piss off China on Twitter, talk shit to North Korea on Twitter, Twitter's off to quite a start with him.
And let's just remember, this guy hasn't even taken office yet, which he takes office in 11 days?
Okay, the first one of Donald's tweets that we're going to look at is actually good news for the country. Quote, Ford said last week that it will expand in Michigan and U.S. instead of building $1 billion plant in Mexico. Thank you, Ford and Fiat.
I love the emphasis on the billion.
He does love the Capitals. Now, let's go on to a more Trumpian, or whatever you would call something that Trump is known for. Tweet. Quote, Hillary Flunky, who lost big. For the 100th time, I never mocked a disabled reporter. Would never do that. But simply showed him groveling when he totally changed the 16-year-old story that he had written in order to make me look bad. Just more very dishonest media. Now, I'm going to stop there. Because I clearly remember a certain presidential candidate during a certain speech mocking a certain disabled reporter. Let's take a look at the video and see. Let's see.
Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Maybe that's what I said. This is 14 years ago. He's still.
I mean, I agree that the media was very unfair to Trump at certain points. But like when you look at this video, it's pretty obvious that he was mocking the reporter's condition. No. Like I don't care what anyone says. He obviously was doing it.
The video speaks for itself, and now, yes, the media did have a lot of things that they mischaracterized him for, but there are also a whole lot of instances where, to refute what Mr. Trump has said, you could literally take a previous quote from him and play it back. Now, that is not the media portraying him dishonestly, if they're literally using his exact quotes.
Yeah.
This is just a further example of, I guess, we're still going on with the denying things that are right on video.
If you just look at the video objectively, you could tell, like, people don't make those motions when they're mocking people.
No, I'm not even saying, all right, in the spur of the moment, it's fucked up it is to mock someone who has a disability. Okay, just admit it happened, let's move on from it, to literally just, no, it didn't happen when it's on camera. Unless he thinks everyone's very stupid, or doesn't understand how cameras work. Now, talk about that stuff just brings up unnecessary worry until the 20th comes. Today, for our main segment, we're going to look over the 5 things that we found to be the biggest sins of modern society.
Number 1, short-sightedness. And there are many things that you could say are short-sighted, but when I think about it, especially when it comes to American society, I think of our military budget, our bloated military budget. So
the biggest in the world.
So we spend $600 billion a year on the military, and that's like a lot of fucking money.
Actually, we spend, in 2017, it's over $700 billion. We'll have the exact numbers on the screen. Don't you worry about that.
All right. And regardless, that's ridiculous that it's that amount anyway, because that is more than the next 9 countries combined, and a lot of those countries are our allies. And you would think that we would want to invest things in, like, stuff that actually benefit the normal person, like infrastructure, energy, education, like back when we actually, did have a good education system. But so the American Society of Civil Engineers gives us a grade of a D+ overall for our infrastructure. Now that includes things like aviation, waterways, education, public parks and rec, and that is just completely not right. Like, why are we investing stuff in the wrong places? That is exactly why, that is being short-sighted. You have to invest things in the right places.
So are you trying to argue that we have better ways of spending money than dropping bombs on the Middle East?
That is exactly what I'm saying.
That is a very hard to grasp concept right there. But
it's very non-American.
Let's think about it for a fucking second. Now, if we took, let's say, even half of the money we spent on figuring out more efficient ways of killing people, we could solve countless issues. For one, now, according to a study done by the Borgen Institute, it would cost $30 billion a year to solve world hunger. Right now, that's an issue that we haven't gotten around to yet. We've somehow managed to solve how to split atoms to create fucking biggest explosions ever. We've built enough nuclear bombs to literally destroy the fucking Earth. But we haven't gotten around to, could we feed these kids who are all starving all over the world? Nah, we'll build another bomb. When we understand completely now, at least I completely understand, you do need a strong military in this world. Unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world. Being a country, you need to be able to defend yourselves, but with the sheer amount that we're spending, is it really at all necessary? I don't think so.
Our discretionary budget for the federal budget is accounts for half of military spending. Like, that is, I don't understand. You could put it in so much more efficient places. In energy, for example, we constantly still rely on fossil fuels, which are proven to have a negative impact on the environment, but yet we still decided to do it.
And it's not that we don't have alternatives.
There are constant alternatives. Yes, if you decide to invest in solar and wind energy, the initial cost would be more, but it would completely benefit humanity than
and your
using fossil fuels.
Pocketbook in the fucking, not even the long term. Just think about it. The installation cost a little expensive. Other than that, though, you're getting free energy. Geothermal, friggin' solar, wind. What do they all have in common? You don't got to keep fucking buying fuel to dump into the things for them to work. It's to not use them is the definition of short-sighted.
We could power the world until the end of time if we invested in solar energy right now.
But no, because fucking lobbyists for the most part.
Yeah, that's
big money in the fuel industry that does not want to lose their money. Number 2, tribalism.
All right, and tribalism kind of means, like, it's sort of the same thing as nationalism, where you tend to think that your side is better than the other.
I'd actually say that nationalism is an example of tribalism, but what tribalism is, it's a broader term that encompasses when you basically look at what you view as your team
versus another team. And
it could be anything. Like, people do it with religion, they do it with political ideology a whole lot. You know, stupid liberal, oh, that damn conservative. Like, you know, when you classify yourself and others based off what group they're part of.
And nothing exemplifies that more than our current political system, the two-party system, which involves the Republicans and the Democrats. And I think the reason why we kind of really have, like, this gridlock in our political system is because everyone just kind of decides to go from one side or the other. There's no, like, middle ground. Everyone's just like, all right, we either got to do this or we either got to do this. It's either like you're either pro-life or you're
pro-abortion. Like, people don't seem to believe in a middle ground.
Yeah, there's no middle ground. Like, the point of politics is so everyone could come together and compromise, so we could find common ground. And we clearly haven't had that since maybe even, I could argue, since the turn of the century. Like, we didn't have it with Bush. We definitely didn't have it with Obama. But I mean, it may seem like we're going to have that with Trump now because we have a unified government.
Well, I think the thing is, the real problem with it is that it stopped people from thinking for themselves. In the sense of, it's not so much that, you got to find a middle ground in between two ideologies. It's that the people, instead of thinking for themselves, they're just, what is this? I'm a conservative, I will think what the conservative idea is. Same thing, liberal, what's the liberal idea? And they just go with that. What's supposed to happen is, well, let's get one thing out of the way. In reality, there is no person who is liberal or conservative. Those words are used to describe ideas. Most people's ideas, like, realistically, when you're not trying to fit reality into some framework that you decided represents yourself, you're going to have ideas all across the board that, it could be placed anywhere. This whole thing that you have to agree with people who identify as the same party or ideology as you, all it does is, it's a really crappy version of groupthink. And instead of coming together and realizing, let's face it, the reality is that most people on both sides of the political spectrum really do want what's best for the country. You just have slightly different, or in some cases, big different ideas on what they believe that would be. But the bottom line, both people want what's best for the country, and the best way to get to that would be, instead of arguing and just calling each other names, have an actual discussion with the ideas and eventually come up with the best version by having a real debate, not an argument. Like, people call debates or call arguments debates now, where it's just two people screaming at each other. No one's trying to come to any different conclusion than they went in there with. I think that really hurts people's ability to think for themselves.
Yeah, the point is that it just holds people back. It doesn't, you can't figure to, get things done if you just have a set of fixed beliefs that won't change at all. And
you know what? It's because instead of, people don't even take it in the sense of, and we're going to get to this more so with one of our later topics in this, but people really just kind of, instead of taking in new information and, adapting their worldview to the world, they try to adapt the world to their worldview. And by that I mean, let's say, I'll use global warming as an example. I think anyone who looks at the actual science knows what the hell's the deal is. It's something, climate change is real. But instead of looking at that and saying, oh, like, okay, that the data's in, I gotta change what we're doing. There's a whole lot of people who, nope, I know how things were going before. No way it's happening, and just will not accept fact, and will not even argue against those facts with other facts. It's either just claiming it's bullshit or putting up from what I've seen. If any of you watching have a good argument against climate change, please share in the comments below.
We would love.
Like, we're always open. We're always open to, if we're wrong about something, please, like, give it a link. Let us know your perspective. We're always open to new views. But from what I've seen now, I've not seen anything disproving climate change that used honest arguments or fact.
And I hate to pick on the Republicans, but, like, when you're talking about global warming and climate change, like, it's just hardwired into them that they don't believe in it because of their usually of their religious principles. And I'm not saying all Republicans are fundamentalist Christians, because that's obviously not true at all. But you have a bunch of fundamentalist Christians that are in Congress that just literally will deny climate change till they die, because that is what is basically said in the Bible. Like, there's no changing it.
I think you may actually be mixing up climate change with the dinosaur thing. I'm not sure if the Bible has anything to do with it.
Well, not specifically climate
change.
But
I think you were getting at is, in the Bible, according to people who believe that it's, Bible fundamentalists believe that the world's 10,000 years old, and the fact that climate data goes back well past then, and like I said, dinosaurs, another thing that those people have a big problem with is dinosaur fossils. That could not even change the worldview. But yeah, I believe that's what you were getting at with that.
Yeah, thank you for correcting me.
No problem. But yeah, bottom line is, like, main thing we're getting at, aside from the little examples, is people, no matter what it is, like, you could have literal, like, scientific study after scientific study disputing your worldview, and there's a whole lot of people that still will not change their minds, even when their view is proven factually incorrect.
It just got to stop being an us versus them attitude, because that way nothing will ever get done, and we will be stuck in the same position we are in 10 years from now, and I don't think anyone wants that.
No one does want that. But it seems with tribalism, at least, has been around as long as people have been around. It's always been us versus them, and that's the main problem, actually, with it. The us versus them attitude is also clouds people's ability to think. Look at it like this. If you automatically go into something assuming that your side is right, and the good side, and you're going to look at your side favorably, it's a natural thing to do, and then you look at the other side as the enemy automatically, and they're bad, all their intentions are bad, you're going to not listen to anything they have to say with an open mind, and you're going to prejudge anyone that's part of that group, and also prejudge anyone that's part of your group in a positive way, though. Now, this is clearly a silly way of thinking, to put it simply. It just really does not work.
And one more thing I want to touch upon is, especially in the age of social media, whenever you put something on social media and you give, like, your viewpoint, whether it's a liberal view or a conservative view, everyone always completely demonizes the other side. There's no, like, it's just, oh, you're a stupid liberal, you're a stupid conservative.
Once someone assumes that you're part of the other side, that's the first comment you will get.
It's over. They will completely disregard what you think just because you don't agree with them, and that's where it needs to end, and that's how you get stuff done, if you stop demonizing the other side.
And actually have real discussion. Number 3, tradition. Now, in America and all over the world, we look at tradition as a positive thing, but I personally don't. Now, here's my reason for this. Tradition, just another easy word to use to say, nope, we already have our mind map, this is how we're going to do it. We did it that way, we're going to keep doing it that way. Now, for some things, it's good. Like, I love holidays. I love even some family traditions, but I just don't like how it stops people from considering doing things differently. I hate when people use tradition as an excuse to keep doing things the same way. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think it's really important to relate tradition to American society in the sense that when you think of American society, what do you think of when you grow up? You probably think of having kids, getting a good job, having a home, having a nice wife, maybe having a dog or two, and then dying. But if you challenge that at all, if you maybe want to travel the world or do something that's maybe out of the realm that people are comfortable with, they just kind of are like, well, that's not possible. You can't do that. Like, you need to make money. You need to get settled down. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
It's just the wrong way to do things because you completely just take away everyone's individuality and
you close off the option of progressing things, kind of. Now, by that I mean, look at it like this. People normally wouldn't call it is a tradition, but it normally wouldn't be called one war. Now, we look at war as inevitable, that we solve problems with the same ways we used to. Like, it's kind of, we're almost in we are in a pattern of behavior at this point, where we have set responses to certain things at a national level, even with example war, and it doesn't take into account the fact that the world is always changing. When the tradition was originally made, it may have been a great thing, but since then the world has almost assuredly fucking changed, without a doubt.
And in particular reference to war, I think it's important because our common tactic when we deal with terrorists is we don't deal with them. We won't interact with them. We do not talk to terrorists. We don't talk to terrorists. You don't deal with terrorists, like any of that shit. But how are you going to even understand, how are you going to deal with the problem if you don't understand what they want, what they're out to do, if you just completely discredit them? Like, it's just a wrong approach.
And also, going off wrong approaches, how we wage the war now, we assume to beat an enemy you have to bomb the hell out of the enemy, you need to kill the enemy, isn't working. We haven't woke up to realize that this is a different war than anything we fought before. We haven't adapted to social media in that sense. The fact that the world is so much closer interconnected than it's ever been, in the sense of, it used to be if you were in a country's borders, you were only subject to the propaganda coming from that country for the most part, with newspapers and all. Now with internet, though, it's people within, like, terrorism is a great example. ISIS is a phenomenal example of it. They use social media to not only bring more people to fight for them in the Middle East, but they try to just convert random people in other countries to pull out lone wolf attacks. Now, with those, you could build the biggest wall you want to keep these people out, but if they're going to be sending things through the internet that are convincing people already in the country, that's a whole different monster that no other point in history did any country have to deal with. If we just rely on traditional methods to deal with this problem, we're not going to solve it.
Yeah, like the point, it's an ideology. You're not bombing people, you're bombing an ideology. It will never get any better. You can't kill an ideology. It's never happened in history. It will never happen in history.
Maybe you can kill an ideology, but certainly not with fucking bombs. Now, let's say someone threw me in charge, and how would I go about solving that? It would be to attack the idea. And now, to attack idea, I don't mean in the sense of making fun of it or anything like that, but look how, for instance, how America dealt with cigarette smoking. Now, actually, a great analogy would be cigarette smoking versus the war on drugs. The war on drugs, our traditional method of handling things, is lock people up. We're going to throw them in, throw away the key, have mandatory sentencing. They just punish people hard enough. The assumption was punish people hard enough, and they won't be willing to do the act anymore. Now, this clearly didn't work. But when it came to cigarettes, where the number of people smoking really did get reduced a lot, the strategy we took was much different. Instead of demonizing them and giving out bullshit arguments like we did, for instance, pot with reefer madness, for example, that anyone with a brain knows bullshit, they actually put out real facts on what cigarettes did to you. I'll never forget when they would bring into the school friggin' the lungs that they've been puffing smoke through and showing you what they look like. By giving real fact and addressing actual concerns and basically confronting the idea with valid criticism, scientifically backed valid criticism, is the way you really do it.
Number 4, denial to change worldview based on new evidence.
Now, this one's a big one for me. When I see people, there's nothing that aggravates me more than someone who is insisting on a point that has been proven wrong, or just putting forth, like, you know, when someone's trying to give their version of how something's going and why it's going, that's just completely not at all based in reality. That just drives me nuts. For example, a very, very, very strong example is, again, to go to one we mentioned before, climate change. No matter how much information comes out, there are people who will just refuse to accept it's real. Another one that we touched on before that is probably even a stronger fucking example is, now, this isn't at all to pick on religious people, but fundamentalist Christians who will not accept that dinosaurs were a real thing because the Bible doesn't mention them, and they believe the world is 10,000 years old and dinosaur fossils are old.
They actually believe that reading a book makes them know the whole entire world.
They're literally take an old book. What's said in an old book is that is how the world works. No evidence can change my mind. This is it. Even when someone pulls up bones of something that was older than the time that they believe the world existed and completely contradicts that view, they will pretend that those bones don't exist. Or my favorite argument I've heard, God put them there to test our faith. Like, yeah, come on. Like, it's in all honesty a harmless example for the most part, because it's, believing how old the world is or if dinosaurs existed really doesn't hurt anyone. But when it comes to dealing with things like, again, climate change, pollution, even how we deal with war, and just how we handle society as a whole, even how we handle criminal justice, so many different things boil down to not changing how we do things based on new evidence.
Another example of how people kind of decide not to change based on their worldview is how people usually tend to trust the government so much that whenever someone releases information that may implicate the government in some type of scandal or something like that, we automatically demonize the person that lays out that information, which I think is completely wrong. You have to... I'm not saying these people are patriots or the best people out there, but...
In some cases, I would argue that they were patriots.
Yeah, but you have to take into account the information that they actually released. We as American citizens are entitled to the information that these people disclose, because it's usually about stuff the government is not willing to tell us because they're afraid of it. Such as the Pentagon Papers when Nixon was bombing Cambodia, or the Snowden leaks. Wouldn't you want to know about this type of stuff?
Think of it. Now, you may have already figured it out, but in case you didn't, we just want to explain what all of the above mentioned factors have in common. Now, at first it may not seem like any of these have much in common, but there is one very big thing. They all stop people or limit people from thinking of new ideas and solutions to things. They're all limiters on people's thinking. And now, if you already break down most of the world problems, at least what I really believe the biggest one is, it's a lack of critical thinking skills is the real big overlying issue. Now, all of these points, that's the biggest thing that they have in common.
Now that you guys have heard all of our whole first video, and we're happy that you guys tuned in, we would just like to end all of our videos on a positive note, because as we know, there isn't many positive things in the news anymore. So, most of our videos will end on some type of positive note, whether it is an inspirational video, or just something nice that happened in the world today. So thank you for watching, and we'll be back next time.
Yes, and please remember to like and subscribe if you like this video, and also feel free to give any feedback, positive or negative. Don't be scared of hurting our feelings. All we want to do is improve the show, and by commenting, you will really help us.
Most modern wars are fought over political disagreements, which are pretty shallow. Ideological battles. What kind of government are we going to have? Capitalism called communism, or communism called capitalism? Or what have you? Those wars are fought out of fear. So we say, all right, we're going to blow those bastards to pieces. We're afraid of them. We don't want anything to do with them. We'd like to just get rid of them. Yeah, but if that is your motivation, and this is your spirit, that you're frightened of the enemy, you're not going to be a good soldier. A good soldier is supposed to be courageous. See? He isn't supposed to be afraid. So, all right, say, well, okay, we're not frightened of these people. We just think that they've been exploiting everybody else, and we are the knight on a white horse with a lance, and we're going to rescue everybody. Okay? In you go. And you stir up the same kind of problems. Everybody says the knight on the white horse, gee, aren't you a stuffed shirt? You think you're holier than everybody else. You offend us by your righteousness. You're disgusting. You're not even human. And after all, you're a hypocrite. Because you may come on politically with this white horse, but you have all kinds of rackets back home, and you know. Still, you're courageous. You've won all that courage. You're not afraid of death and all that. So, if you're not afraid of death and all that, the question comes up again. Why fight? What's the point? Who are you protecting? Are you going to teach your children to be afraid? And say, I'll protect my children because they've been taught to be afraid. I'm the father. I've learned not to be afraid. Why didn't I teach my children not to be afraid? If I had, I wouldn't have had to defend them. Because they would have said it's just an illusion and we can dissolve out of this body and appear somewhere else. Because if that is what happens, and it's pretty obvious that it is. I mean, when I say you'll appear somewhere else, everybody who appears is you. Only you can only experience it one at a time. But everybody only experiences themselves in the singular. But everybody's you. Everybody's I. That's our name. We all share that. So there's nothing to worry about in that sense. But if you know that in your heart of hearts, obviously the only strategy that is worth anything at all is not to chop everything up, but to love everybody.